once again to the video. In this one, I shall be continuing my look at every Grand Prix in the 2025 Formula One World Championship. With this one being the penultimate round of an amazing championship that has seen so many ups and downs from the three main drivers going for the championship. So what I do is I make a list of the finishing order of the 20 drivers. Then I do a rundown of the top 10 in the Drivers' Championship, followed by the rundown of the Constructors' Championship. Okay, so let's dive in, shall we? Maybe I should zoom that in a little bit more. Do you think I should? I'm not entirely certain if I should or not. Let's for a laugh do this whilst videoing, why not? Maybe. There we go, I think that's a little bit better, isn't it? A little bit of wobble there, but I think that's good. I think that's good. Okay, so let's dive in, shall we? So it's round number 23. Qatar, or should it be Qatar? I hear some people pronouncing it Qatar, but that doesn't sound right to me. So unless I am physically stopped in the street, as it were, and told I'm mispronouncing it, I will keep going with Qatar. Just sounds a lot better. Okay, so pole position was Piastri. I don't normally write that down, do I? But I have done for some reason. Okay, so let's go. Oh, let's make sure that's definitely in focus. Yeah. Try and make this a little bit of a shorter video because I don't have a lot of time. So, first place was, of course, Verstappen. Second, Piastri. Yeah, I think that's in focus. Is that in focus? Let's try that again. We have to make sure always it's in focus. Very important. Okay. Third was, who was third? Oh yeah, Sainz, wasn't it? Yeah. And then fifth was another good performance. Antonelli, sixth. Russell. Alonso. Lawson, Tsunoda. Leclerc. Lawson. Tsunoda. Albon and Hadjar. Bortoleto, Colapinto. Yeah. Still in focus, I like to think. I'm sure it is. Yeah, Ocon, Gasly. Allen, Stroll, Hadjar. Hulkenberg. Okay. Right, so now we do the rundown in the Drivers' Championship, going with 1 round left. Norris 408. Verstappen 396. Piastri 392. Russell 309. Leclerc 230. Let's just do that, make sure. I want to make sure that that's definitely in focus. It's very important. Okay. 6th is still Hamilton, but only just. Antonelli. 150. Okay, Constructors' Championship. It's McLaren 800. Mercedes 459. Red Bull 426. Ferrari 382. Focus, yeah. Williams 137. Racing Bulls 92. Aston Martin 80. Haas 73. Sauber 68. Alpine 22. Okay, so what did we think of that race then? Firstly, I think fastest lap was Piastri, wasn't it, at the end? Verstappen's 70th win. It's impressive. Okay, so Norris has had 7 wins. Verstappen 7 wins. Piastri 7 wins. Look at that. Russell 2. So McLaren still on 14. Red Bull on 7. Mercedes 2. So, firstly, the sprint race. That's one of my arguments against sprint races. I don't like sprint races because nothing really happens. Well, in most of them anyway, nothing much happens. I remember an Austrian sprint race 2 years ago, I think, was quite exciting. But by and large, nothing really happens. And nothing happened in this one either. I would still rather have it than, you know, a couple more practice sessions. But, yeah, nothing really happens. I think what doesn't help is that drivers are not as motivated because there's only 1 point between each position. The points should be, you know, a little bit better, basically, but not like a Grand Prix, of course, but still better. So, Hulkenberg v Gasly. The race started pretty standard, didn't it? Not a lot really happened in the race. I will say that Verstappen in the sprint race did overtake 2 cars at the start, but that was the only thing that happened in the sprint race. In this race, we had safety car after about 7 laps after Hulkenberg and Gasly came together. I can't remember now whose fault it was. Was it Hulkenberg or was it? No, I think it was Gasly more so, wasn't it? Hulkenberg was on the outside. Gasly was on the inside. Hulkenberg gave him plenty of room, but Gasly maybe just understeered into him, clipped his tyre. And that was the end of Hulkenberg. And pretty much Gasly as well, really. What the weird thing about this race, I've not seen this before, because they had this unusual instruction, which I've never seen before, where you're not allowed to go a certain number of laps on any tyre compound. 25 laps was the maximum on any tyre compound. Now, was that because Pirelli are worried about the tyres, or is it a way of trying to make it more exciting or something, forcing a 2-stop race? I tend to think it's more the latter than the former, although the former is what has actually been said, I believe, that they were worried about the tyres. I don't get that. They're never not. They don't worry in the past, have they? They tell you, oh, these tyres will last this length of time, these tyres will last this length of time. So try and change them beforehand. It's up to the teams, you know. So I think it's more about trying to force 2 stops. But of course, with that terrible decision by McLaren to not pit their drivers, that meant, I think those 2 McLarens and Ocon, was it, were the only 3 cars that stayed out, which meant after 32 laps, every single car was going to come into the pits, having changed tyres on lap 7, or the end of lap 7, I think. Therefore, by the end of lap 32, 17 cars would have to come in if they were still running. 17 cars would have to come in and change. And then that would have to happen again on lap... no, of course it wouldn't happen again, would it? Because that would get them to the end. So stop on lap 7, stop on lap 32. The McLaren stayed out, apparently for flexibility. Now, I thought what they meant by flexibility was that they would be able to stop whenever they wanted to. You know, they'd have more. They would. They could make some tyres last. You know, they could change after, say, 15 laps if they wanted to put on something different. It gave them flexibility in that regard. However, after the race, Andrea Stella said it was more to do, the flexibility was more to do in case there was another safety car or a virtual safety car. You can't run your strategy on the possibility maybe of a safety car later on. So I think that's just a big mistake to not bring the McLarens in. Now, some people have said, and it's totally wrong, but some people have said, oh, that's because they couldn't stop both McLarens at the same time, and they want to be fair to both cars. Papaya rules. Well, for starters, that's not what papaya rules is. Papaya rules isn't being fair, equally fair to each driver. Papaya rules is mainly don't take each other out on the track. I think that's basically papaya rules. We see teams all the time have to bring in 2 cars at the same time, and they just double stack. And the one who is behind loses out by a few seconds. And that's totally fair. So they would have brought in, if they had decided to pit them, they would have brought in Oscar and Lando at the same time. Lando loses out a few seconds by double stacking, and that's completely fair. It's not unfair. It's totally fair, and that's what the team would have done if they had wanted to stop them at that time. Lando would lose a few seconds, but that's totally fair because he's behind Oscar on the track, whoever is in front should get the preferential treatment. That's why Monza was a bit of a mess. Norris was in front, but they asked Norris to give the preferential treatment to Oscar. I say Lando sort of virtually volunteered it as well. And then, of course, it all backfired in the pit stops. So, the guy in front gets preferential treatment. So they would have just brought them both in, and they would have double stacked Lando. Nothing wrong with that at all. They certainly would not have thought that was unfair. The McLaren team would not have thought that was unfair on Lando. That's just racing, because he's behind Oscar. Oscar did a better job, qualified on pole. Lando missed his qualifying run, his final qualifying run in Q3, made a little mistake. Had he not made that little mistake, he might be world champion now. Because with it being very difficult to overtake, I can see Lando winning that race, but only if both McLarens had come into the pits. So that handed the race win to Max Verstappen, basically straight away. As Max himself said, we're only really in the championship hunt. He said before the race, we're in the championship hunt because of mistakes made by the other team. And he probably means by drivers as well. Norris lost loads of points with mistakes early in the season. In the first half of the season, Oscar lost loads of points with mistakes in the second half of the season. And of course, they have both lost points through no fault of their own. Lando more than Oscar, of course. Oscar has lost 12 points, and Lando has lost 36. Well, actually more than that, 44 if you include being taken out by Oscar in the Austin sprint race. 44 points Lando has lost through no fault of his own. Verstappen, when he had the accident in Austria with Antonelli, I think it was Antonelli's fault, wasn't it? But we don't know where Max would have finished, so you can't accurately predict what points he would have got. But Lando's the one that's lost out the most through bad luck. Otherwise, he would have already wrapped up the championship, basically. What else? Not a lot else happened in the race, really. The McLarens came in for their pit stops they came in on 20 after 24 and 25 laps respectively, didn't they? And then, of course, the rest of the field all ploughed into the pits at the end of lap 32. It's very strange to see that. Very strange race to follow from that perspective. All those cars all doing the same, having to do the same strategy. Apart from the two McLarens and I think Ocon. At the end of the race, of course, Norris, due to his lacklustre pace, found himself behind both Sainz and Antonelli. A little wiggle, a little mistake by Antonelli allowed Lando to get past. That fourth place that Norris got could be extremely key, of course, in the championship, because if Verstappen wins in Abu Dhabi, which he could well do because he's on fire at the moment, he's got nothing to lose. 4 world championships, who cares if he wins or loses a 5th one? So he's racing with carefree abandonment. He doesn't have the same stress levels that Lando and Oscar have because they're going for their first. I'm not saying that Max would show signs of stress. I mean, he was all right in 2021 throughout the season, I think. But still, it's going to be a lot more relaxed. Max is out there having fun, basically, not expecting to win, and so therefore, of course, does win. He's lucky, as he says himself, he's lucky to be still in the championship because of mistakes that McLaren have been making and the drivers. Otherwise, Norris would have already cleaned up the championship by now. So, yeah, he says that himself, that he's lucky to still be in contention. But at the same time, he does have 396 points compared to Tsunoda, who has what does he have? about 30 points. Yeah, I think so, about 30 points. So, and I think some of those points were in the RB at the start of the year, weren't they? RBS. Yeah, so every time we think Verstappen's out of the championship, something happens, a combination of things. Either he drives extremely well and gets a win, well, that happens, and then also the other thing that happens is that something bad happens, like a disqualification, for instance, or a retirement for the McLarens. And that combination has pushed Verstappen up into contention. But if he wins in Abu Dhabi and Norris is third, Norris will win the championship by 2 points. However, before that Antonelli wiggle, Norris looked like he was going to finish fifth, which would have meant that if Norris was third and Verstappen won in Abu Dhabi, they would be level on points. But it would be Verstappen would have won 8 races to Norris's 7. So Verstappen would be world champion. So it's very key. Norris now knows he just has to finish third. However, Nigel Mansell just had to finish third in 1986, and his tyre blew up 16 laps from the end in Australia, whilst he was in third place. Championship gone. I remember watching that live at sort of 3 o'clock in the morning when I was 15 years old. Without those disqualifications, Verstappen would be out of the championship now, and Piastri would only just be in it. He would be 22 points behind Norris without those disqualifications. So it's very painful, but Norris just has to put that behind him. Those disqualifications helped Piastri because he clawed back 6 points on Norris because of those disqualifications. So it is going to be difficult for Piastri to win the championship. There are lots of different permutations and calculations and everything, but it's going to be difficult. If Piastri wins, he's 16 points behind, isn't he? So if Piastri wins, then Norris just has to finish, where does he have to finish? 5th? I think he just has to finish 5th if Piastri wins, because that would be a 15-point difference, and he's 16 points ahead of him. If Verstappen wins, then Norris just needs to finish third to win the championship. Anything can happen. Either one of them could retire. Norris could be leading the race and then retire, or get disqualified after the race. So it is up in the air, but Norris has the slight advantage, of course, followed by Max, followed by Oscar. But it's totally up in the air to a certain degree. Anything can happen. In 2010, Sebastian Vettel won the championship despite not having led the championship at all throughout the season. And he went into it, I think, in third place in the championship. Was it second or third? Third, I think. And he won the championship. In 2007, Kimi Raikkonen went into the last race in third place behind the 2 McLarens and won the championship by 1 point. So, it's not over for any of them. And I should imagine Norris is actually more nervous than Piastri, because Piastri is probably thinking, looking at his look on his face after the race, he's already thinking the championship's gone due to McLaren making the mistake of not pitting them. Whereas Norris has got all the pressure in the world. He's got Oscar, who probably already feels he's lost, and he's got Max, who's a shot to nothing. Might as well go for it. If I get the championship, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And then you've got Lando leading, almost touching the championship, his first one. So all the pressure is going to be on Lando. And he's not good when under extreme pressure. That's when he makes mistakes in qualifying. Or his track limits. Track limits is always a problem. He had 2 track limits, maybe 3, but they only announced on the commentary 2 track limits quite early in the race. And you remember in Austin, Texas, he had 3 track limits before halfway through the race and had to be extremely careful for the rest of the race. Okay, that's all I will do for now. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to subscribe, please do so. Or leave a comment. Or like the video. Or leave a tip on the thanks button below the video. And I will see you next time, hopefully on the very next video. And obviously there will be a video on Abu Dhabi as well. And then a video on the championship as a whole. A little bit after that. Anyway, I haven't commented on all of these, have I? Did I comment much on the other drivers? No, I've been talking so much about the top three. I've not really mentioned what a fantastic performance it was by Sainz, but it was. Great performance by Sainz. Lackluster by Russell. He didn't really do that much. Alonso, good performance. The Ferrari is in a terrible state. Hamilton has given up for the year. I think he did that a couple of races ago. I think he's just waiting for Christmas. And hopefully we'll see him next year in a Ferrari. Can't say for certain, but hopefully we will. Anyway, thank you and goodbye for now.